Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. He's Juice. I'm Luce. We're back. Cubs sweep the San Francisco Giants. Big win on Wednesday. 8-2 capitalizes the sweep. Juice, buddy, happy hump day. How are you, my friend?
Good. After this, the last South Bend Cup game I go to for the year. Won't be the last Cubs game I go to because I've secured my tickets for the last homestand. And you'll be at that, and Tyler will be at that, and I think Nick and Joey were also talking about. So maybe full barn at that game, which will be fun in the bleachers. Get to meet some of the fans if you haven't yet and are in the area. That's a fun one to go to. I'll say 120 started Wrigley in September. It'll probably be a perfect, 70 to 80 degree day. Beers will be flowing, and we'll be in the area.
Heck yeah, man. I'm excited indeed. That'll be my last Cubs game of the year on the 22nd when we go. But I will be there tomorrow night, which I'm very excited about. And I have tickets right now for the night before the 22nd, that last game against the Pirates.
No playoff.
What? Well, that's a discussion for later in the year. But trust me, I got my eyeballs on those. Don't you?
Hey, the way they're playing, man.
I know.
It seems like a foregone conclusion if they can keep this up.
I know. I agree. Duncan cards here in the comments with the fire emojis and a couple of brooms. Because, Juice, exactly that. We are talking officially about a sweep. This is the Cubs' first sweep since June. It's been a hot half a minute for these Cubbies to get a sweep, and they do so here against the Giants at Wrigley Field. Honestly, a beautiful day for a game. It's now cooled off since the end of the game, but it was a little bit of a warm one this afternoon, probably the last real warm day we could have, truthfully, depending on how the weather goes.
Seems that way.
It's starting to feel like fall in the Chicagoland area, and it's something that we'll certainly keep an eye on. But I mean, Juice, we got to start with the hot hands. Really, that's just what this team has been propelled by so far this season, Juice. Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki continue to get it done. Both had 2 hits on the day. Ian Happ, also a 2-hit day for him with 2 runs scored. Belly drove in a pair of runs, had the solo shot as well as the double. Seiya Suzuki drove in all 3 of his runs on that early double. In the early going, Amaya with a home run today as well. Morel got that big RBI in addition. Nico Horner also with a hit today, as did Madrigal, which resulted in an RBI. Good day for the offense, but it was the big guns today. It's been that way recently. Seiya Suzuki, Cody Bellinger carrying the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, it's almost like this game got set up almost over the course of the first 2. You know, when you look at the Giants team and the way they've had to maneuver just to get through ball games, they used a lot of that pen. So today you wake up and, as we were talking about last night, unsure of who they were going to pitch. They did pitch Alex Wood. And it's like scramble mode for them, right? I mean, they were almost trying to piece it together to get to the end. And that's what happens when you take competitive at-bats throughout a series. When you set that tone, like you were kind of talking about on the Bears on Tap episode, things seem to roll together. But Cubs on Tap now too. You could definitely set the tone of the series by getting into that bullpen earlier on in, and then it makes it easy for days like today when it seemed like from the start of the game, the Giants were just ready to get the hell out of Wrigley in a lot of ways. It just they didn't play with that fire like they're playing for their season, because they realistically were today and this whole week.
100%.
And they have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of guys that are normally in that lineup that aren't there. But the Cubs have to come out and they have to they got to capitalize. And the Cubs played one of those low heartbeat, easy, fun, make you feel good about yourself series before an Arizona Diamondback team comes into town where, all 4 of the games are going to be pretty crucial. I think that this is one of those series that kind of buy you time for later on in the series, because we talked about how it's great to win 2 out of 3, but when you can take the opportunity and sweep, it's almost like you can supplement losses in the past by adding an extra win in a series. Taking that sweep almost makes it feel better that you lost those 2 against the Reds, because that series too, if you come out, let's say you sweep, or let's say that you lose 3 out of 4, they don't win that Sunday game, and then you go into this and you lay an egg too, we're probably feeling a lot worse about this team. But that's not how they're playing. They're playing smart. Jordan Wicks, fantastic today. But you know what this Cubs team does? They just play together. I mean, it's realistically they're playing really complimentary baseball, and you love to see it. I just hope they can continue this running through September and in October, because they look like if they can play this way, they're going to be able to play with anybody.
Yeah, and I think right now too, right, offensively especially, it really does feel like, and it's something we discussed a little bit yesterday too, but it really does feel like right now that your consistent cogs in this wheel that is the offense are Cody Bellinger and Seiya Suzuki. They're hot at the right time. I mean, Belly's been scorching hot since June, but Seiya's coming on at the right time now, pretty much since the beginning of August, and looks like the $17 million a year player that you paid, right? And obviously that's on average, and he's going to make more next year and whatever. You get the general point, right? That's his rough average of what he's getting paid. He's starting to look like that guy. And it doesn't matter where you hit him in the order. I'm fine with the whole almost old school ideology. I think we've seen a lot from this Cubs in this Cubs order in terms of the lineup, right? You have your big guns hitting 4, 5, 6 more so than, the new school thought where you hit a lot of your best guys in that, 1 or 2 hole because of more at bats. But these guys are delivering. Seiya's delivering, Belly's delivering, and they did that again today. And then Juice, it's just everybody else finding a way to pick it up on that day, right? Hap gets 2 hits today, scores 2 runs. Nico gets on, he scores a run. Miguel Amaya comes through with a big solo shot late in the day. It's just a lot of good things, like you said, Juice, because they're playing complete baseball. And again, when the hitters are hitting, shit goes well. But Juice, as fun as it is to sit here and talk about Seiya, as fun as it is to sit here and talk about Cody, we got to talk about Jordan Wicks, because this guy, they said he was coming up, and they're like, everybody got excited, and he's looked good, and he's only gone 5 in his first 2 starts. Then he's only throwing about 85 to 90 pitches so far. They're not really letting him go over 90 quite yet. But dude, he did it today. And as Darren said here, Aladdin's lamp is what we got going on right now. We said last night, if he can give us 6, that's awesome. Instead, he gives you 6 2/3 of 2-run ball. And Wicks delivers for what we asked on last night's show, Juice. He looked phenomenal today without statistically looking phenomenal, if that makes any sense.
I think too, this is the type of pitcher he's going to kind of be over the course of his career too. He doesn't have crazy swing and miss stuff. He's going to allow people to put the ball away more times than not. He can strike out when he needs to. He could definitely rear back and get you in front of that changeup, but he pitches to soft contact. That's his game. It just doesn't surprise me. I watched this kid at South Bend for a lot of starts. A lot of the games that I went to that first year I was here were Jordan Wicks starts, because he just has that battle-tested ability and kind of feel to him without being super battle-tested, if that makes any sense. He has that calm voice that he gets in these situations today, and he wasn't great by any means. He gave up hits, but he stranded a lot of runners, and he did that because he has that bulldog mentality of I know what I got to do to get out of this inning. And I mean, just the heads up play too. He gets the ball hit back to him, hits him in the leg, goes home with it because all of his momentum's going forward. That's good baseball. And that's things that some players get in that situation and they panic and they turn to first, and maybe they throw the ball away, or they botch picking up the baseball because they're trying to rush to make the play at home even though they have enough time. That's one of those situations where I watched Jordan Wicks make that play several times here in my backyard, and that shows. It's one of those things that every start that he pitches up here doesn't surprise me, because it's the exact same thing I watched here. It's just he doesn't beat himself, and B, he very much like knows how to control the heart rate, knows how to meet the moment, and knows that like he's got 3 or 4 or 5 Gold Glovers on his team. Yeah, let him put the ball in play. And how often today did soft contact, putting the ball on the ground, easy plays to Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, Nick Madrigal, who, keeps climbing up the defensive run save number too, which
is bananas.
It's great. Who would have expected that? But the thing that I love about Jordan Wicks is he's just calm, level-headed, and he takes the ball, and he just knows what he has to do. He knows he doesn't do more than what he's capable of. And some guys who come up would definitely push for more and try to do too much, and that's when you fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been so interesting when you look at his stat lines from each game too, right? And quickly do a couple of comments here because there's some really good ones involving Jordan. Darren saying exactly, Juice. That's why he's so happy to hear that he's been pestering Hendricks continually, learning to get the soft contact as well as strikeouts. Scott says Baba Yaga Wicks. The league is on notice. And in addition, Scott says here, and this is something we're going to touch on here in a minute, but Cubs homegrown pitchers shoved today, and Duncan Cards followed it up, said 100%. It was invigorating to watch. And I agree, Juice. And, to me, Jordan Wicks is the perfect definition of a pitcher that it's not always going to be like Justin Steele's that dude, right? He's the nasty strikeout stuff. Yeah, he's going to get you 6 to 12 Ks every time he goes out there, shit pump for 6. Jordan Wicks is I'm just going to give you whatever we need to get done that day in order to win ball games. Doesn't matter if it's pretty or not pretty. And I think today was a perfect example that you watch the evolution of just his final stat lines over his first 3 starts. Obviously, that magical start in Pittsburgh goes the 5 innings on 80 pitches, 2 hits, the 1 earned run, as we know, it was the homer, walked only the 1, 9 punch outs. Then he comes back against the Reds team in that first game of that doubleheader on Friday. 5 hits. So, he gives a few more base runners, walks 3, which I know was something you saw from him at times. Sometimes he'll walk a couple guys. It's not a ton, but every once in a while he'll walk a couple guys. And still only gave up the 1 earned run and punched out 3. But again, gives you a chance to win the ball game and actually gets the win. And then today, he was, to your point, Juice, just pitching to contact. 1 strikeout. That's it. He got his first Wrigley Field strikeout today, and that's all. The first was the only one he got, but he didn't walk anybody. And then to your point, Juice, yeah, he gave up 9 hits, but only the 2 earned runs, and he really didn't start to get hit until that 7th inning. I mean, he was great. And again, instead of going 5 and giving you strikeout stuff, when your bullpen could absolutely use the day to get a blow, and they got it again, because then Daniel Palencia and then making his debut today, Luke Little finished out the game. Jordan Wicks did exactly what this team needed to win. And they got the win, and it didn't need to be pretty. But like you said, Juice, he's a bulldog. He's a gamer. He goes out there, and he gives it to you. Juice, in addition to that, mentioning back to Scott's comment about the homegrown pitching, Daniel Palencia, 1 1/3 innings today with 2 Ks. He looked really good. And then Luke Little, making his debut. We got 2 debuts today. We'll touch on the other one here in a few minutes. But Luke Little in the 9th, 2 strikeouts. That sweeping slider is disgusting, especially when he throws 97 with the fastball. But that's the exciting part about today's win. It was 3 homegrown pitchers, which when was the last fucking time we could say that? 3 homegrown pitchers got the job done today in a massive win for the Cubs.
Yeah, and 2, it's just bearing fruit of – Daniel Palencia comes over in that Andrew Chafin deal. He's a guy, but he could throw 100. He's just a guy coming back. The main part of that deal was Greg Diekman, who, never really became anything really with the Cubs. I don't even know if he's in the system anymore.
Ooh,
but
I just got a shiver from that name, Juice.
Yeah, remember he was here for a blip in the radar for 10 minutes, it seemed like. But no, it's I like Palencia the next, and I think JD was talking about this on the broadcast a couple days ago. Like the next move for him is to like hone in on the off-speed stuff to make sure that that 99-mile-an-hour fastball plays better, and it will. I mean, we're talking about a young guy. What is he, 24, 25? I think he's maybe even younger than that. Might even be 23. But we're talking about a guy who throws 100. Can't teach that, right? That's all that you're born with. You can either do it or you can't. And that's one hell of an arm. And then you go to Luke Little, which, I mean, I hate to keep talking about my backyard, but when it's there and I can watch these guys consistently, I watched Luke Little as early as recently as this year. I watched him over at, and I watched him last year make his debut with South Bend. He is full effort. He's the type of kid that very much too, like, will show emotion on the mound. He hasn't showed it yet. I don't think. I didn't see any today, but he's one of those people that as he comes into his own, I think will get more and more comfortable with, yelling and screaming, like those Justin Steele kind of screams that we see too. I mean, we saw Leiter do it a couple nights ago too, I believe. But yeah, homegrown pitching, and it's almost the flip, right? 16 was we got home runs and RBIs from the guys in the farm system, and they bought the pitching. And now it's flipped. There's a few guys up here eventually that are going to be, some position players that they drafted or they traded for and brought in. But now this is all homegrown pitching under the tutelage of Tommy Hotovy and Jed Hoyer as well, and the whole group down there in the pitch lab who's making things out of nothing. I mean, we DFA'd Leiter, and look how great he's been this year for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of reclamation projects that have gone through that pitching infrastructure that they've built, and it's been fantastic, and it's shown it bears some fruit. But it's interesting to me, like watching Luke Little, because I watch a guy that, he's not the ideal bullpen arm. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like, he will walk people, and that will be frustrating for David Ross to figure out. But if he isn't walking people and he can meet the moment and separate the fact of being a starter and coming out of the pen and, just being consistent of having to pitch maybe some back-to-backs, maybe we're looking at a guy that has more upside potential in that bullpen than Brandon Hughes. And that's something that I don't think the Cubs have in their system. And they don't have lefty bullpen depth at all in Luke Little. I mean, there's some guys that, like we mentioned, Brandon Hughes, and there's some names that were brought in off the scrap heap just to help. But, there's just not a lot of options. But I watched him today, and, that fastball is going 97. He was pumping it up to 98 a few times. And that backdoor sweeping slider to the back leg, like, that's unhittable. It reminds me of Justin Steele in a lot of ways. And I don't know if they're teaching that at, the different levels. And I don't know if that's something that he had in his arsenal prior to, and that's just the way he throws it. Or maybe they tweaked it a little bit, because the problem at South Bend that I watched with him was always control, and that fastball control and being specifically about which pitch was the problem. I don't know if maybe they honed him in, changed, some mechanics within his motion. But the one thing I'll say today is, like, he had nasty stuff, and he was calm for his debut. Calm. I think that, and that's two things that I took out of his, debut. And man, thank God that they're getting some pitching finally, because I mean, it's been decades since we've had homegrown pitching like this.
For sure. And you were correct. Palencia is 23. So again, just young pitchers with good stuff that this Cubs, pitching lab and their pitching staff in terms of coaches and the front office have identified and said, hey, we're going to turn these guys into something and find what they can do well and hone in on it. And they have religiously. And Darren has said, hey, great point, Scott. It is cool to see homegrown pitchers with more on the farm. Agreed. I agree that the lefty depth is a little weak on the farm. I think that's something that most of their lefties are starting pitching prospects. Like, that's just what it is, with a lot of righties in the pen in terms of, kind of those next wave of bullpen arms. But Nonetheless, man, a complete agreement. He looked really, really good today. It's been beautiful. Darren agrees. He's like, he definitely thinks someone has been in the minors teaching them that slurry looking slider just because of how hard it is to hit with that sweeping motion. And they got it done again today, man. Like, good to see Little get in there and get some action on his first day. Certainly cool for his family and his debut. But just when you can sit back and you look at that box score and you see 3 homegrown pitchers, it really is just kind of the cherry on top of today's game.
It is. You win with pitching and defense, and when you can't win with hitting, you win with pitching. That's what this is. And baseball, I just want to look at the game in general and talk to it. Everybody makes baseball so much more complicated than it needs to be. Like, let's really face it. If you can keep runners off the bases and keep the ball on the ground and have solid pitching, realistically, you're going to be in every baseball game. There's nothing else that teams can do to you if you can limit the run game and pitch. There's not. And if you can keep the ball on the ground, keep it in the ballpark, 9 times out of 10, you're going to win. You are. And it's great to see, guys like Jordan Wicks who understand. And sometimes, and I hate to pick on Tyone for a second, but it's almost like I just wish sometimes that Tyone understood, like, if I throw 95, as long as I keep the ball at the knees, I'm not going to get beat very often. Mm-hmm. I don't need to throw 95 up and in or up in the zone. I just don't. Like, unless I'm Justin Steele with like a goofy windup and nasty, why would I even think about throwing the ball, below, above the waist? Keep the ball down. Make sure, especially when Wrigley blows in a lot of days, I just wish that like Tyone and some of these guys that are, within the league would just take the page out of like Marcus Stroman's book and Jordan Wicks's book of like, I'm just going to throw at the knees and locate. And if he can golf out a 395, foot home run, tip your cap. There's not very many guys who can go the other way and hit the ball with authority that way. There's just not. Right. And that's why, like, it's just kind of frustrating to me too, because some guys, I get it. Like, you want to throw high, you want to show it, but like, man, it's just one of those situations where you watch like this team today and you're like, yeah, it wasn't much from Jordan Wicks. He kept the ball down.
Yeah,
that's what baseball is.
Yeah, he kept it on the ground. He gave his, as you mentioned earlier, right, Gold Glove caliber infielders just opportunities to make plays, and they did that, and they've continued to do that all season long. Juice, we've talked about Luke Little's debut. Let's discuss, at least very briefly, Alexander Canario finally gets a chance, gets his a pinch hit opportunity in the DH spot late in the game. Strikes out, but in fairness, as Scott mentioned a little bit earlier here, the Giants pitched their closer in the 8th there when they're down 6, and he said their pen is screwed. I mean, that is their best bullpen arm that came out and he had a face. When you got 99 up high in the zone like that, it's really hard to hit. But again, I think the biggest takeaway for me, Juice, from the Canario at bat is I really didn't care if he struck out. Don't get me wrong, there was a huge part of me that was like, just send one on the wavelength. Just do it so I lose my shit and something gets broken. Like, just do it. Just give me that moment. But I think what the coolest part of it is he's the 28th man. Nobody on this roster owes him anything in terms of just who he is as a ball player. But that whole dugout was up on the railing for that at bat. That is truly the difference with these Cubs teams these last 2 years. They legitimately like each other. The culture is there. And sure, yeah, he goes down swinging and strikes out in his debut. But that's got to be a cool moment for him when he's like, man, I just got here. I'm the 28th man on the roster. They've already come out publicly and said I'm not going to play much. But, like, it's cool knowing that the team's got my back and they're just as excited as he is for those moments. I think that was really the coolest takeaway from the Canario moment today, Juice.
I thought so. How cool is it that he gets rewarded, gets to play for his patience. I'm sure let's face it, he's probably happy just to be there in the dugout.
Sure.
I'm sure he'd, but he was rewarded, and unfortunately, the reward was Doval. He's gross, and
he's a dude.
Yeah, poor guy. Go up there and take some hacks. But I'll say this: he didn't leave anything in the bag. He pulled Driver out 3 swings, and hey, why not? You're at that point. You're up 8-2. Who cares? You're gonna win this baseball game. The rest of this doesn't matter. Have your moment. You struck out. You laugh about it. You go back to the dugout, and that's an experience. Now that's done. That's over. You don't have to worry again about taking your first bat ever at Wrigley Field or in the majors or anything like that. Who cares? And you got to do it against one of the grossest pitchers in the league, to be honest. He's nasty. And, you put up a battle. He ran it to a full count, 3-2. So, hey, tip your cap. Great for the kid. Great moment. I'm sure that his heart's beating a little bit, faster than normal when he gets up to that plate and in the on-deck circle. But awesome. I'm just glad he got a shot. I'm not trying to stir up any conversation that we had last night, but no, there were moments over the course of these last couple games and the Red Series too, where it's just give the kid an at bat. There's no reason not to. They were up big on Sunday when, the game was in hand and he didn't get an at bat, which is fine. But, I was glad that Ross, tipped the cap to his patience and just kind of said, hey, go have your moment, take a shot at it. Who cares? We're about to win this baseball game, and good for him. And maybe he gets another chance again, and maybe, he gets that first hit, and then all the weight seems to come off of the back. Because I'm sure that's a difficult situation for somebody new in the league to not, have a hit yet, and to be going up there and seeing the offer and nothing next to your name in terms of hits or anything like that. But yeah, no, it's good for him. I'm glad he got his moment at Wrigley too. It's almost more special that way.
Oh, 1,000%. I have no disagreement there, Juice. Quick comment here from Darren. He says it's no different from when he coached youth baseball. The right culture makes average teams good and good teams great. It really does. Culture is a huge thing, really, in all sports, not just baseball. And this Cubs team is becoming more and more evident of that. Juice, any final thoughts from today's game? Maybe the Giants sweep in general before we go ahead and turn the page to the Diamondback series?
No, thank you for low heart rate wins. Big fan of those.
I am also a big fan of those, buddy. Anytime the blood pressure doesn't need to get, driven up on the old blood pressure meter, it's a good day for both of us there, my friend. So Cubbies win 8-2. As we noted, they complete the sweep. They put the Giants in the rearview mirror, and kind of noting that really quick, David Ross said it in the post game today, right? They're playing some teams now where you can really put the distance between you and them in the wild card conversation, right? Obviously, you're chasing for the division, but if you play yourself into the top wild card spot and you continue pushing for the division, good things happen at very minimum. And if they win the division, especially being the third team, you want to be 3 or 4 in these standings, because then you get home games in that first, important first round.
Also, you're the bottom of the bracket, Ronald, and you're not next to the machine Atlanta Braves. And you also, too, don't have to play Philly, who, if Philly were in any other division, who knows how good they would be, and how far they'd be up in the standings, too, because they're gross, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, and on top of that, not only was today a good win, this Cubbies team gained ground. Brewers lost to the Pirates today. Thank you, Buccos. We appreciate you. That inches the Cubs ever closer. Game and a half now back of these Brewers. And again, they're right there in terms of the wild card. Them and the Phillies pretty comfortable in those first 2 wild card spots as things stand. And Juice, as we turn the page, the Diamondbacks are coming to town, and almost in perfect timing, Mr. Brian Lefevre here. He says, "Hey, dudes, thanks for taking care of the Giants. Now, please cool it for the next 4 days." Okay,
can't do it.
Love a D-backs fan. Nope, can't do it. We'll give you
hard
Friday.
pass.
We already talked about it, Brian. We'll give you Friday. Tyone's on the bump. You guys got Gallon going out there. We'll give you Friday, but we need the 3 of 4. We need to keep the foot on the gas. And that opportunity starts tomorrow, Juice, because it's a 6:40 start at beautiful Wrigley Field. So the Cubs welcome the Diamondbacks to town for a 4-game set from Thursday through Sunday. This one, we are in TBD mode for the starting pitcher. Maybe Brian knows who the starting pitcher is for tomorrow. Brian, if you're still in the comments, friend, if you can help us with that, that'd be freaking awesome. But MLB.com says it's TBD, but we do know who will be on the bump for these Cubbies. It is Javier Assad, the righty, 3-2 on the year with a 2.69 ERA. Nice. With 67 punch outs. He's coming off a huge 8-inning outing against the Reds over the weekend. And again, I'll be in attendance tomorrow. Pretty excited about that. Cubbies on tap. Follow the account. Follow myself. We'll get some cool pictures, cool videos, all that good shit from beautiful Wrigley Field. Quickly, Mr. Lefevre says, since he shared Gallon stats against Justin Steele with Tyler, the milkman has been awful, LOL. And he still says, still TBD, likely bullpen game, though the rumor is Blake Walston might get called up. So
I also heard it's a possibility that it is Randy Johnson on the mound for game 2.
The 57-year-old Randy Johnson.
I heard he's also going to be taking pictures of the game as well. Because I don't know if you know, he is an NFL photographer as well.
I do know that. I do know that. That would be funny. Watch him come in, throw 5 innings, and then take pictures for the last 4. I mean, shit, if anybody's going to be able to do it, it probably would be Randy Johnson, despite his age. Maybe he's not – he might not be hitting 90s anymore, but, I mean –
birds beware, unless they're Cardinals, then –
then you get no warning.
And fire away.
But Juice, with Assad on the bump tomorrow, what do the Cubs got to do on Thursday night to get the rhythm going in this 4-game set against the D-backs?
Early. It's what they did today. You know, when you get out early and you're a starting pitcher and you can pitch from the front, it's, you know, very beneficial. I'd like to see them do what they did to the Giants in this series as well. Get into that bullpen early. That way, when it gets to 3, the 3rd game and the 4th game, you're getting the back end of their bullpen, and you can make something happen that way. It'd be nice too to have Javier Assad carry this run he's been going on. I think he can. It's one of those that I think he's shown that he's starting material, and he just needs to keep doing what he's doing. It'd be nice to win 3 or 4 of these. That way, when you got to play 3 against them in their ballpark and a series later after that, you can hopefully maybe win 2 or 3. It's tough to win on the road. And I don't know, for some reason, I don't know if this tracks, but I never feel like the Cubs play well in Arizona. I feel like they've dropped a decent amount of games over the course of I don't know if that's just my memory being shoddy, but
no, I think you're onto something there. I think it's almost more that they don't play well against the D-backs at Wrigley. Like, that's what it reminds me of.
Fair
Like,
too.
I feel like when they get them, it is in Arizona is when they get them. But like when the Diamondbacks come to Wrigley for some reason, like especially the last handful of years, right? Like I think back to the last year. I think it was last year, right? Like back in like April of last year, that like 9-7 game against the Diamondbacks on like a weird windy day at Wrigley. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I just never feel good when they play them.
Agreed. I never do either. It doesn't matter how good or bad they are. There's something weird about the D-backs and the Cubs that it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm right there with you, Juice.
So yeah, I mean, just get ahead, exercise some demons maybe in some ways, and yeah, hopefully Wrigley. I'll say this: like the fans over the course of this homestand and the last groups of homestands, it's been unbelievable. The fans have made a difference, and when you can hear 3 or 4 players come out and say too, like, hey, I had to turn up the volume on the pitch comm. I credit the fans. I mean, Justin Steele's like, man, I was tired, but then the fans started screaming and yelling, and like it just propels me to throw harder or to do better. Like that's one of those moments, like, man, that the Wrigley Field crowd really does make a difference when it's bumping and hopping, and I expect it to be that way. So my challenge is to anybody going to the game, that's you, Mr. Luce, lose that voice tomorrow and write it off for the weekend as, hey, I did my part.
Yeah, I am. I think after today, I am on rest mode for the voice until Sunday. So
Fair.
yeah, I think. I think we can. I think we can pull that off. In the end, it could be really good. Couple comments from Mr. Lefevre. He said Josh Rojas had 3 homers that day, referring to that game that I mentioned. He also just Googled this. He says the Cubs are 82 and 88 all time against the Diamondbacks,
See,
45
I
and
knew they
39 at
never
home,
play well was it
and
Chase
30,
Field?
yeah, 37 and 49 on the road. So you were right,
Yeah.
Juice. Maybe it's more of a recency bias that was in my brain, but I feel like that was a little flip-flopped in
I
the
also
last
think I
couple
got a
years.
little PTSD from like the Kyle Schwarber injury too, because I believe that was in Arizona.
It was. Yes, it was.
So ever since then too, I think that my brain's almost associated that ballpark with bad.
It just your brain glitches a little bit when you see that ballpark. You're like,
Yeah. Anything to
yeah,
those gaps, I'm like, Ian Happ, don't die.
seriously. Just let it fall. Live to see another day. I'm right there with you, man. And no, just building off what you had to say, Juice. In his last 5 starts, Assad's gone 7, 6, 5 and a third, 7 and 8. Would love to see him go minimum 6 tomorrow. I think 7 is in the cards. Jordan Wicks got through 6 and 2/3 today. I think Assad can go 7. I think he can even pitch into the 8th. Maybe he doesn't finish the 8th, but I think if he pitches into the 8th, and again, these starters just kind of put the team on their back a little bit here in early September, really let that bullpen rest with the stretch run coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I think that's going to be really, really, really helpful to this Cubs team. Before we get the Fly the W players, Juice, another quick comment here from Brian. He says, I did see this because I have Corbin Carroll on my fantasy team, and I got this notification today as
not
well.
good.
Carroll took a pitch off the wrist today. He might not play tomorrow at least. So, this is going to sound awful, but this is the baseball fan in me coming out, not just the Cubs fan. I wanted Corbin Carroll to be in the lineup tomorrow because I wanted the Cubs to win 9-2, and like the 2 runs come off of like a Corbin Carroll triple, and like because that dude's so fast. I just want to see him run in person.
Yeah.
That dude might be the fastest player in baseball. Just he is a little speed demon running around the bases. I wanted to see the Tasmanian Devil in real life, just around the base paths. Again, a blowout win for the Cubbies, but just give me that little bit of tease as a baseball fan. That's like going to see the Angels come to town and play either the Cubs or the Sox, and like Trout or Ohtani are hurt. You're like, well, what the fuck? I don't even want to go then. It defeats some of the fun, but they still got a good ball club.
You want to beat them. You want to beat them like at their best. You don't want to like go in there and roll. I mean, don't be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'd take 4 victories if that's the case. I'm not going to hand them back to the D-backs, but it's definitely more satisfying.
It definitely is. Quickly from Darren, he says, I think last year the D-backs took 3 out of 4 from the Cubs at Wrigley. Cubs had 2 out of 3 the 2 years before that at Wrigley. So again, recency bias is what's flowing through my brain. Again, folks, you got to remember when we're here at Cubs on Tap doing these shows damn near daily, it truly does. You respect the marathon, I'll think, a little more when you're a little more actively involved. Brian also says he was at the game when John Lester hit his first career home run off Patrick Corbin. LOL, worst game he's ever been to, according to our friend. And for those that maybe don't know, Brian Lefevre is the genius behind a lot of the graphics and video here at OnTap Sportsnet. So if you don't already, at Lefevre Fever on Twitter, go follow him. If you guys have seen our Adbert Alzolay GIF where he splits into 5 different versions, that was courtesy of Mr. Lefevre. So be sure to give him some love and appreciation, because we try to give him all the love and appreciation as well here at OnTap Sportsnet. Juice, one final thought before we get Fly the W picks. Bernie says the Cubs need to win the NL Central. I completely agree. Who is your Fly the W player for this series against the Diamondbacks?
I took Dansby the last time, I believe, in this Giants series. But I'm going to go with Nico Horner. I want that man stealing bases. I want him causing a ruckus, driving in some runs. Be nice to see Nico. Real nice series. A ruckus.
A ruckus. I love it. I'm gonna go with one of kind of a guy along the same lines. Juice, you said Nico Horner, one of the homegrown talents this team recently extended this in this offseason. I'm gonna go with the other guy that they homegrown talent and extended, Ian Happ. I think him having a big series could really do a lot. Had 2 hits today. I think he can build off that going into this Diamondbacks series over the weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and take the switch hitting Ian Happ as my fly the W player. Juice, before we get out of here, a hashtag you're welcome from Brian. We appreciate you, sir. Before we get out of here, I want to remind everybody Cubs on Tap, one of 2 official Cubs podcasts here at the On Tap Sports Net. Follow our friends over at the Dingers Podcast at Dinger Cubs on social media. The boys are live every Monday night, right around 8:15 Central Time. Be sure to check that out right here on the On Tap Sports Net YouTube page. Be sure to follow us as well at Cubbies on Tap, Cubbies. You know the drill. At Juice on Tap, at Luce on Tap, at Joey Knows Nothing, Nick on Tap, Nick _on Tap. Pardon me, Teddy Freddy 270, Bulls Guy Rob, the whole gang. Be sure to follow Tyler Smith ISL as well. Tyler Smith, new contributor for us on the writing side. Incredible stuff when he is pounding out things. You know the drill. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks. We got it all. It's yes, I know, Juice. I caught my word usage as well. I saw that look. I said it, and then I was like, oh, damn it. Bears this weekend, big Bears weekend. Bears on Tap was live yesterday. You heard Juice and I there with our friend Q. Juice will be at the game on Sunday. The rest of us will just be watching on television. Be sure to follow with Bears on Tap as well. It's going to be a fun weekend as the NFL season officially kicks off. And Cubs fans, you know the drill. We got friends that like the Southsiders, and so do you. Send your friends to our friends at Sox over to our friends at Sox on Tap as they do a great job covering.
And they can be friends.
Yeah, they can be friends and let them be friends because Lord knows they're all miserable and sad, and misery loves company. So when your team's really bad, they need to stick together, and the Sox fans can do that. Once again, ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet on the socials. On Tap Sportsnet, go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. A couple of beautiful comments and appreciated comments here. Darren says this is the best Cubs podcast, period. We appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
And Bernie says thanks and go Cubbies. I agree with her. Juice, what do you say, buddy? We get out of here the only way we know how at Cubs on Tap.
FTC and FTP, and let's go Cubbies.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's go Cubbies, baby.